Have you ever tried to get that tricky 100% sync in some Assassin's Creed missions, especially in the earlier games? It can feel like the game is really pushing your patience. These optional objectives turn an already tedious mission into a difficult grind. For some players, getting through a mission without messing up is hard enough. Now add in challenges like not taking a single hit, staying completely undetected, or pulling off some very oddly specific kill. That's the essence of 100% sync in Assassin's Creed. The era from around 2009 to 2015 really focused on these full sync requirements. Ubisoft back then filled these AC games with objectives that sounded straightforward, but demanded quite a fair amount of challenges that would often cause you to replay the mission many times. That's pretty much what makes getting that 100% sync so satisfying, or I guess you could say infuriating. So what I want to do in this video is go over the hardest missions in Assassin's Creed to 100% sync. Now how I managed to gather all of this information is by thoroughly looking on Reddit, YouTube, forums and discussions to find what people would consider difficult 100% sync missions, and I've gathered them all to talk about. These missions are in no ranking order, so bear that in mind. Real quick before I get into it, if you do enjoy this video, do consider hitting that subscribe button. I have a Patreon where you can join if you want, and you can receive some pretty exclusive benefits. The link to that will be down below. Anyway, without wasting any more of your time, let's get right into it. Let's start off with a mission named The Burdens We Carry, and this one comes in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. The mission as a whole is pretty simple. In fact, every mission in this video is fairly simple, but it's the 100% sync is where it gets tricky, and in this case, it's not to be detected at all when escaping the Castello whilst carrying Caterina Sforza in your arms. In terms of Assassin's Creed, this is the definition of pure assassin stealth, and it's pretty fun. Now what makes it quite difficult is the mission structure, which demands precise timing and a lot of pinpoint movement, especially as two guards approach the jail room right from the start. You have to quickly drop Caterina and prepare for a stealth takedown. It's one of those 100% sync missions where, let's say you spend 5 to 10 minutes on it. If you mess up once, and it could be right at the end, you have to restart the entire mission from the start, and given the AI in Ubisoft games are not exactly the best, it's more than likely some type of bullshit would happen. If you do attempt this mission, I would recommend patience, stealth, and definitely rely on having throwing knives. I feel like the 100% sync for this mission would not be as hard if Caterina was able to run and walk with you, because it's just a case of picking her up, putting her down, picking her up, walking around for 5 seconds and repeating. So yeah, The Burdens We Carry is the first of many tricky 100% sync missions in this video. Next up, let's take a trip over to Assassin's Creed 3 and go over a mission that I'm sure is more recognized as a bit difficult to 100% sync, and that mission is named Conflict Looms. Now I believe this exact mission has multiple objectives for you to do in order to get the 100% sync, which is cross Charlestown without taking any damage, remain undetected whilst on the ships, and the last one, which is just so random, is to air assassinate a grenadier. It's a mission that is all over the place, from land to water to ships to bombs. It's just a weird mix. First, you have to run across the town as a bunch of explosions and cannon fire is directed at you. Sometimes it's RNG, but it's still tricky. You've really just got to plan a route in order to take no damage. And then once you're in the water, you got to get on the ships and stay there the entire time undetected. It's a bit annoying because strangely every guard has this tight patrol pattern and they're always watching. You've got a grenadier on patrol who seems like he can see through walls, and other guards perfectly positioned to spot you even if you're slightly off in timing. I guess the best approach for this mission is just ledge kills, poison darts and corner assassinations, I think. But whatever your approach is, I feel like this specific part is just a balancing act to stay hidden. Miss a single timing and you're basically caught. Oh, and the patrols, they change each time you retry the mission, so there is no reliable pattern. You might finally figure out how to get past one guard, only to find that it doesn't work the next attempt. That's why I mentioned RNG. The biggest pain though is getting that air assassination on the grenadier. You have to sneak around, pick off the other guards without being seen, and time it perfectly to drop onto him without any slip-ups. And don't even get me started on the second ship. You might think, oh, the second ship should be easier. Nope. Here, 2 captains patrol while more guards are conveniently facing just the wrong way for you. You're expected to time everything down to the second, plant a bomb, and get out without raising an alarm. If you get 100% sync on this mission without tearing your hair out, then kudos to you. It's just one of those missions that stresses you out a lot. Okay, now next up is a mission we've all played at this point, but very few actually in fact go for the 100% sync, and that is the Hell on Wheels mission in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. The requirement is to get through it without taking any damage whilst in the tank. and it's as annoying as it sounds. The mission starts off sneaky enough with you tailing some guards, jumping into a walled village, and sneaking around to destroy blueprints. But once you hop in that tank, that's when things get pretty goddamn annoying. So when you're in the tank, the key is to just avoid any hits, which sounds simple until the enemy cannons stop firing at you. These cannons will instantly ruin your sync if they land a hit, so you have to spot the red targeting lines and dodge them by strafing. The trick is to destroy enemy cannons first as soon as you see those red and white target icons in the distance. Moving perpendicular to the red sight lines is your best shot to dodge the incoming fire. But to be honest, it's all about timing and positioning. You know, just stay alert, because if you're slow, those cannons will not hesitate to mess up your run. Now the final showdown, oh boy, now that's where things get a bit sticky. You have to take on 2 enemy tanks at once, and they are relentless, let me tell you. I feel like the best strategy here, without doing a glitch, is to keep circling them and try to separate them a bit. Of course, if you're a bit brave, there is that glitch I mentioned, where you can just inch into the checkpoint to trigger the tanks, then backing up slightly into the desync area. Weirdly enough, this can make you invisible to the tanks, letting you pick them up from a safe distance. But if you're doing it legit, just go in slowly, clear out obstacles in advance, and focus on one tank at a time to avoid crossfire. For this next one, it's a mission that is less frequently known compared to the previous one, but still a mission that has a very hard 100% sync. This mission is named The Giant and the Storm, and it comes in Assassin's Creed 3. I feel like Ubisoft really went out their way to make this one a complete nightmare. The optional objective is to sink 3 ships by hitting their powder stores, and it sounds straightforward. Well, that is until you actually try to do it. Here is the problem. Everything about this mission is fighting against you. First, you've got the chain shot to immobilize the ships, but that's only the beginning. The real pain in the ass starts when you try to expose the powder stores. Supposedly, you just give them a gentle ram at the front to crack open those powder kegs, but in practice, it feels like an absolute gamble. Half the time, you line up the perfect angle, give the ship a nudge, and nothing. Or worse, you accidentally hit them just a bit too hard, and the entire ship sinks instantly. It's a case of one wrong move and bam, you're back to square one. And let's talk about the waves. Oh boy, the ocean physics seem to be conspiring against you, tossing your ship around just when you're about to line up that shot. You'll get right up to the bow, ready to carefully nudge the enemy ship, and a rogue wave shoves you into an accidental full force collision. It's infuriating. The Aquila movement kinda handles like a tank in a way, so making these precise maneuvers in massive waves is basically impossible. If anything, this mission feels more like you're fighting the sea as much as the enemy ships. Then there's the aiming. Even if you miraculously get the powder store exposed, you have to pray that your swivel shot actually hits the target before the ship sinks. And it's like the game knows you're trying to get 100% sync, because it makes that weak spot feel ridiculously tiny. You're left taking shots and hoping you get lucky, which makes this less about skill and more about pure luck. In the end, this mission's 100% sync objective is borderline sadistic. You spend more time wrestling with the ship's mechanics in the waves than actually playing the game. And honestly, it feels like the developers just put this in to mess with completionists. This specific mission is probably the most recognizable in this video, and it's also a mission with a difficult 100% sync, and that is the Battle of Bunker Hill in Assassin's Creed 3. This is off topic, but who else misses the historical events being implemented into the games? I know I do. Anyway, this mission is kind of similar to the previous one in a way, where you have to do multiple things just to get that 100% sync. First, you need to cross the battlefield without taking any damage, limit regular kills, and also assassinate John Pitcairn without being detected. First off, crossing the battlefield without taking a single hit. This one sounds pretty reasonable, right? Nope. Imagine trying to make it to a field while redcoats are firing endless volleys at you, and the only cover is a series of rocks and logs that are somehow supposed to shield you. The timing has to be perfect because the soldiers fire in waves, and if you miss that tiny window, you're taking damage. Also, what's kind of annoying is the soldiers shouting incoming, because honestly they're more of a distraction than a help. Then there's the limit regular kills objective. Now this would be fine on its own, but here it's like adding insult to injury. You're supposed to reach your target while only taking out a few guards, which would be manageable if the detection system was not so fickle. Just when you think you've carefully snuck around, one guard turns around, spots you, and bam, objective failed. It's painfully easy to slip up and break stealth or accidentally kill an extra enemy, and that's another run down the drain. Finally, there's the dreaded air assassination on John Pitcairn without being detected. This part is infuriatingly specific. You need to move around a weird looking camp filled with guards, climb a tree, hop onto a flagpole, and then make the jump, all without being seen. Why this is kind of annoying is because the guards' patrol routes almost feel designed to catch you out. Plus, if you do everything right but don't time the assassination perfectly, you're spotted, and it's back to the beginning of the mission to get the 100% sync. For this one, let's go back to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and talk about the mission named Requiem. Funnily enough, this mission takes place in the same location as the first mission that I mentioned in this video, which was the burdens that we carry. Anyway, this specific mission is pretty much an exercise in stealth-based frustration, and it's especially hard if you're aiming for 100% sync. The mission requires you to essentially traverse a pretty complex series of rooms and corridors without being detected. That alone would be difficult, but the way it's set up makes it feel almost unfair. This is not your usual sneak and assassination mission. It's a pain in the ass, because you need to dance around the guards, patrols and cramped spaces, and one wrong move spells immediate detection. The stealth aspect in the first section sets the tone pretty much, where you have to avoid patrols and carefully time your movements. In some cases, you can call in assassin recruits I guess to silently dispatch guards, but to be honest this tactic is far from foolproof. The mission's notorious library room is perhaps the most aggravating part. In theory, you're supposed to take down guards one by one without being seen, but in practice it's goddamn inconsistent. Sometimes you would only have one guard patrolling, while other times there are three, each conveniently placed to ruin any attempt at stealth. There's a guard on the balcony that seems immune to easy sniping or ledge kills due to the obstructive architecture, and if you do manage to kill him, there's a decent chance another guard will magically hear or see you, no matter how careful you are. To make things a lot worse, the AI in this Requiem mission does not play by any reliable rules. Guards have this weird hyper-aware senses that seem to activate on a pin drop, so even the most well thought out plan that you do could fall apart due to unpredictable NPC behavior. Throwing knives and crossbows are theoretically helpful, but can be unreliable due to the guards' inconsistent reactions. It's no surprise that so many people online have vented about this mission. It's just a test of endurance, luck and the willingness to reload a checkpoint repeatedly. This is a mission that I put in a video I made over a year ago, which was the worst missions in Assassin's Creed, and for good reason too. It's a mission that is just straight up ass, and to top it off, the optional objectives to get 100% sync are also just straight up ass. In fact, it's easily the worst mission in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and it's the mission named Family Politics. So your first task is to steal a royal carriage without actually entering the courtyard, a requirement that literally defies logic. It's like asking you to steal a thing, but don't actually get too close to it, which makes about as much sense as it sounds. To complete this, you could just either wait for a random guard to drive the carriage out, or try a convoluted tactic to spook the horses by shooting near them, hoping they would bolt out of the courtyard. But these methods are highly unreliable, and vary depending on how the AI decides to behave. Sometimes you'll just wait several minutes for a carriage to move, only for it to get stuck or veer off course. The spooking method is equally frustrating, as it's very easy for the carriage to sustain damage in its frantic escape attempt, especially with guards and obstacles in the way. Once you finally hijack the carriage, you face the second requirement, which is keeping its condition above 50%, but good luck with that. The spooked horses tend to collide with everything in their path, such as lampposts and NPCs, which further chips away at the carriage's health. The rest of the mission involves racing to pick up politicians in chaotic London traffic, where you'll encounter reckless NPC drivers, fire carriages, and tight time limits, all whilst trying to prevent any more damage. Then, for the final result, you're required to return the carriage to the original courtyard you stole it from, where more guards are waiting to attack. It's one of those 100% sync that's just incredibly tedious, and it's definitely a luck-based mission that feels more like a test of patience than skill. For this one, I'm not really sure if I would personally consider this a hard 100% sync, but according to the internet, which is what this video is based off, it's apparently quite difficult. So this one is named Caress of Steel, and it's from Assassin's Creed Rogue. I mean, I guess the reason it's quite difficult is largely due to the optional objectives that seem designed to frustrate you at every turn. First off, the mission begins in a gas-filled mansion where Shay must avoid the poison that Hope has pumped into the room. To achieve full sync, you can't touch the gas, which is an optional objective that sounds quite easy, because you can just follow the route that the game offers you. The mission gets even worse after the gas section. Shay is poisoned, meaning he will take damage if he stands still or moves too slowly. Just as you're reeling from this debuff, the next optional objective is introduced: stay out of combat. This sounds pretty straightforward, but the area is crawling with guards, making stealth nearly impossible without creeping, which of course is a no-go due to the poison. The mechanics kind of contradict each other. You're forced to maintain a fast pace to survive, yet you also have to stay hidden, leading to a constant push-pull of failed attempts. And then there is the chase sequence with Hope. At this point you're poisoned, with dwindling health, and you've got to chase after her, moving past the mansion's cramped quarters and sidestepping more guards. Hope runs faster than any enemy you've encountered, which is a bit odd. Well, actually maybe it's not that odd, considering she's an assassin. Anyway, the path that she takes is just winding, making it a nightmare to stay on track while avoiding combat. I looked online and I noticed that many players ended up restarting multiple times, with desynchronization, or the optional objective failing just moments before reaching the checkpoint. This specific mission is more of a personal choice, and one that I just wanted to put in this video because it's easily one of the worst missions in Black Flag, and it's the mission named the Siege of Charlestown. It's a mission that is just full of obstacles, from tailing a gunboat to a cramped swamp, to trying to keep up with the rowboat while avoiding watchtower guards and moving around crocodile-infested waters. It's a sequence that seems designed to test your patience more than, just having fun. The mission starts with you tailing a gunboat through the swamp, which feels ridiculous in itself. If you know me, then you know I simply hate tailing missions. Also, the Jackdaw, which is your powerful ship built for open seas, is suddenly confined to these narrow waterways, making the whole thing feel forced and clunky. Maneuvering around watchtowers is just frustrating, since you are constantly dodging the vision cones while trying not to crash, and if that was not enough, the game makes you hop off the Jackdaw to deal with the watchtower guards by hand, and also sabotaging alarm bells without alerting anyone. Then there is the crocodile objective, which is part of the 100% sync. It's just so random. You're supposed to use sleep darts on 3 crocodiles and skin one, which sounds simple, but it's another annoying part of the mess. You're constantly interrupted by these gators, all whilst trying to tail the boat. And if you're out of darts or forget to restock, then good luck. After all that, you finally dock, and then have to switch to tailing a rowboat on foot. This section just keeps piling onto the annoyances. You're moving into swamps, dodging more guards, and still keeping an eye out for crocodiles. Just when you think you've had enough, the mission wraps up with a chase scene. You're supposed to chase the captain to a swamp, but the game's free running, which is just holding one button and forward, often gets in the way, causing you to sometimes cling to random surfaces or get caught in awkward spots. One wrong move and you lose sight of your target, forcing a restart from an earlier point. So yeah, basically the Siege of Charlestown is a web of annoyances, from forced tailing missions to random animal encounters and janky free running. The Champion Part 2 mission in Assassin's Creed Revelations is one of those missions that is just pretty notorious among completionists for being one of the hardest missions to fully sync. The goal here is simple in theory: protect the Herald from assassination without letting him take a single hit. However, this quickly devolves into chaos as waves of enemies charge in relentlessly, often from multiple directions, while the Herald just stands there shitting himself, making himself a prime target. To get the 100% sync, I believe the best approach is for you to have resorted to an arsenal of bombs, and the stink bomb strategy is often the most recommended. By tossing a stink bomb at your feet, you can kind of create a safe zone around the Herald, stunning enemies before they can get close. But stink bombs do not last forever, and if you run out, you're in for a shitty time. Caltrop bombs offer a similar approach, with scattered spikes that slow down approaching enemies, giving you time to react. Still, even with these tactics and bombs, the mission feels like it requires more than a bit of luck, as enemies sometimes slip past, or the Herald does something unpredictable. When I looked online to see what people were doing to achieve the 100% sync, the main strategy I saw was to stay locked onto the approaching enemies and use crossbows or throwing knives to quickly dispatch attackers from a distance. However, with all these strategies and tips, the issue is that Ezio will sometimes be targeting the wrong enemy, or moving sluggishly. It's not surprising that this mission has led to rage quits and frustration, with many players noting that achieving 100% sync feels more like a lucky break than a reward for skill. For the final mission, let's go somewhere different, and that is Assassin's Creed Liberation, a spin-off game or DLC, depending on how you look at it. The mission is named Return to Mexico, and it's probably one of the most rage-inducing missions in the game, especially if you're aiming for 100% sync. This mission, which has Aveline moving to river rapids in a canoe, might sound like a no-brainer type of mission, but in reality, the canoe's twitchy controls make it feel entirely different. To make things a lot worse, the canoe is ultra sensitive to every stick movement, meaning you'd often find yourself spinning in circles or crashing into rocks repeatedly. It's pretty clear that this mission was originally designed for the PS Vita's controls, and somehow the remaster did not adjust the sensitivity to work well on other platforms. It doesn't get any easier because the river obstacles and the necessity to dodge them adds on to the challenge. Online, players have even had to develop quote-unquote hacks to navigate the canoe, like holding down both the L2 and R2 on PlayStation consoles to stabilize it slightly. Then, once you're past the canoe section, you're forced into a disorienting underwater maze, complete with star-shaped obstacles that drain Aveline's air if touched. If you do not follow the exact path, it's easy to get desynced repeatedly, only to restart this shitty sequence. And let's not forget the actual optional objective to solve a puzzle in 5 moves or less, which is its own mission. So yeah, Return to Mexico is one of those random missions that has no right being what it is. And there we have it. Those are the hardest Assassin's Creed missions to 100% sync. I might have missed out on a few, but after scouring the internet, these are what I managed to find. Out of the ones I mentioned in this video, were there any that you guys struggled with the most? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, shout out to the members of my Patreon, and with that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.